Well, MPs are debating and will vote on Lord amendments to the Rwanda bill tonight. The government's fairly confident that the bill will pass this week, and Labour aren't blocking them. But it's really not the end of the road. For one, the government is struggling to find an airline willing to take asylum seekers to Rwanda, including the Rwanda's state-owned airline, which is worried about the effect it'll have on its branding. If this does pass, of course, there will be multiple legal challenges too. And yet, despite all of this, there were reports this morning that the government was in talks with other countries trying to strike similar such deals: Costa Rica, Ivory Coast, Botswana, Armenia. The Home Office's most senior civil servants were asked about this today, and they confirmed that the government had been making overtures, but they didn't say to who.
There are a lot that have been assessed, and a tiny number that are into the next stages of work.
And could you give us a sense of how many, as the Times reports, have rejected our overtures?
I think broadly, I would say that when the Foreign Office approaches different countries, some of them reject the suggestion outright, others are interested, and the conversation continues.
Well, they were speaking to the Public Accounts Committee, whose job it is to assess whether certain government policies are a waste of money or not. The Home Office Permanent Secretary Matthew Rycroft said that for this to be good value for money, he'd want to see the number of people coming over in small boats reducing by a third, but that is not happening. That's a long way off.
Amelia in Parliament, thanks very much indeed. Meanwhile, official figures show that while we enjoyed a rather calm, sunny Sunday yesterday, more than 500 migrants crossed the channel in small boats, the busiest day so far this year. So, if the flights do eventually take off, could the government's Rwanda plan accommodate these sorts of numbers? Here's our data correspondent, Kieran Jenkins, with the analysis.
Well, the government, of course, wants its Rwanda plan to deter migrants crossing the channel in small boats. But so far, instead of being sent to Rwanda, asylum seekers have been getting stuck here in a sort of limbo. Why? Well, the government set itself a legal duty to send asylum seekers who arrived in the UK irregularly since last July and can't be sent home to Rwanda. They'd apply for asylum in Rwanda and stay in Rwanda, whatever the outcome. But the Supreme Court ruled it was unlawful to send them there, so they're stuck in limbo until the government passes the Rwanda bill to get around that. Now, so far, it has spent £260 million on the Rwanda plan to deport 0 asylum seekers to Rwanda. How many people have arrived then by irregular means since July, mostly by small boat, and are now in limbo? We've counted almost 24,000. And today, the Public Accounts Committee heard there could even be 40,000 migrants in limbo. So, how many people can Rwanda accept each year? Ministers have said only that Rwanda can take 200 people at first. The capacity will increase over time, and there's no cap on overall numbers. So if Rwanda's initial capacity is 200, well, way more than double that number of migrants arrived by small boat yesterday alone. So how long might it take the government to send those asylum seekers already here to Rwanda? Well, here's that almost 24,000 number again, the dotted line you're going to see here. And if it takes 2 months to process that first cohort of about 200 people in Rwanda, as some press reports have suggested, at that rate, it would take 20 years to deport just those asylum seekers who've arrived since July to Rwanda. But the Home Office insists the Rwandan government will scale up quickly. So what if Rwanda takes 2,000 people in the first 6 months, then 3,000 people from the second 6 months onwards, as other press reports have ambitiously suggested? It would still take over 4 years to send those 24,000 migrants to Rwanda. And this target, of course, will keep moving upwards as more and more people come, although the government hopes the plan will have a deterrent effect. Now, these are just 2 examples of how this could play out, and the Home Office said it did not recognise this modelling and that the scheme is uncapped and there can be further accommodation as required as Rwanda moves asylum seekers into long-term accommodation, creating additional capacity.